You work out, you take your vitamins, you get regular checkups, you pay your insurance, you read health blogs, track your steps, drink your filtered water, maybe even meditate before bed. You do everything you've been told to do to be healthy, to live longer, to stay in control. But pause for a second and ask yourself, are you actually healthier? Do you feel more alive? Do you feel free? Or are you quietly more anxious than ever? About your numbers, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your future? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. According to the World Health Organization, global healthcare spending doubled between 2000 and 2020. We're pouring more money than ever into wellness, but chronic disease is still rising. So is depression, so is medication dependency. The more we invest in wellness, the more broken we feel, the more health apps we install. The more tests we take, the more supplements we buy. The more we become dependent on a system that profits from keeping us worried. Somehow, modern health doesn't feel like health. It feels like anxiety wrapped in a subscription. And no one seems to ask the question that cuts through the noise. What if this isn't accidental? What if the system isn't failing to make you healthier? What if it was never designed to? Because think about it, a healthy person doesn't generate repeat revenue. A strong, self-aware, self-reliant person doesn't buy pills they don't need, doesn't need constant check-ins, doesn't anxiously Google every symptom at 2 a.m., but a person who's afraid of getting sick, who's told they're never enough, who believes their body can't be trusted unless a lab test says so. That person they spend. They subscribe, they obey. And slowly, without realizing it, they give away something far more valuable than money. They give away their power. So let's ask the question. Most people are too distracted to ask, has the health industry truly been trying to cure disease, or has it been manufacturing patients? Because if you look closely, you'll notice a pattern hiding in plain sight. Every new product promises control, yet you feel more helpless. Every new scan promises answers, yet you feel more confused. Every new trend promises energy, yet somehow you're more tired than ever. You start to believe you're broken, that something must be wrong with you, and the solution conveniently is always for sale. Health is no longer a natural state. It's a product, a subscription model, a never-ending cycle of prevention, fear, intervention, and maintenance. And the moment you step into that cycle, you're no longer a person with agency. You become a consumer with anxiety. You might still feel like you're taking care of yourself, but in reality, you're being trained to outsource your well-being, to hand over your instincts, to mistrust your own body, to depend on a system that sells you control. By keeping you controlled? Because let's be honest, when was the last time someone in the industry told you, you're fine, you don't need anything? When you rest deeply, move daily, and eat simply, your body already knows how to heal. When you stop fearing every small sensation, you start becoming strong again. They don't say that because that message doesn't sell. Fear does, confusion does. Data overload does when you're overwhelmed. You reach for answers, and in this system, answers are always monetized. So maybe the real sickness isn't just in our bodies. Maybe it's in the story we've been sold about what health even is. Because when wellness becomes an industry thrives on growth. There's only one way to keep expanding. Make sure the cure is never the goal. Make sure the customer never feels done. That's how we've ended up here. Where you can do everything right, follow the rules, buy the products, play the game, and still feel broken. Still feel unsure, still feel like you're failing. But maybe you're not. Maybe the system is succeeding at exactly what it was built to do. So if the system was never built to make you whole, What was it built for? Let's drop the illusion. The word healthcare sounds noble. Compassionate human, but it's not a service anymore. It's a global industry worth over $11 trillion. And in that kind of system, your body isn't sacred, it's a revenue stream. Your symptoms aren't a problem to solve. They're an opportunity to monetize, package and sell back to you as care. Feel a cold coming on? That's the gateway to a prescription, an entry point into a cycle of ongoing treatment. Feel tired? That opens the door to tests, supplements, hormone therapies, pills, a buffet of solutions, all with a price. Feeling anxious or burned out? That justifies therapy sessions, mindfulness apps, and a shelf full of expensive self-care. Every emotion, every fluctuation in your body has been rebranded as a medical event, not something to observe or understand, but something to fix, to treat, to bill. And if you think that sounds like an exaggeration, consider this. The British Medical Journal said it plainly. Healthcare is no longer about health. It's about the sustained consumption of medical solutions. Let that sink in. Not the provision of health, but the sustained consumption of solutions. In other words, it's not just about helping you when you're sick. It's about keeping you just sick enough to stay plugged in. Not dying, but not truly thriving either. Just tired enough, just anxious enough. Just dependent enough to keep clicking paying. Subscribing. This isn't healing. It's managed illness sold back to you as empowerment, while your trust and vitality quietly eroded, because once you've medicalized daily life, the possibilities are endless and endlessly profitable. Every ache becomes a product. Every emotion becomes a diagnosis. Every fear becomes a marketing funnel. And no, this isn't a conspiracy. It's a business model, a highly optimized, psychologically engineered, brilliantly disguised business model. It turns your basic human experience into transactions. Feeling restless, that's not a life issue. It's an attention disorder. Feeling lonely, that's not a social disconnection. It's a chemical imbalance. And guess what? There's a pill for that. A plan for that. A prescription that turns discomfort into debt. The system wants you to be a customer for life. Not because it hates you, but because that's how it wins. And here's where it gets darker. This didn't start yesterday. It's not the result of modern social media or Big Pharma alone, no. Someone saw it coming in 1975, long before wellness became a buzzword. A man named Ivan Illich exposed it for what it was becoming. He called it medical nemesis. And in it, he wrote something that still haunts the system. To this day, modern medicine has become a major threat to health. Not a tool for healing, but a force that undermines it. Not through error, but through design. He wasn't talking about emergency surgery or antibiotics. He was talking about the system that turns the doctor into a salesman, the patient into a dependent, and the body into a marketplace. One where trust is lost and compliance is rewarded. He saw clearly, decades ago, what we're now living through. A culture where being well doesn't mean free. It means compliant, plugged in, monitored and quietly afraid to step out of line. Where your health isn't your own, it's least metered, monitored, and every new innovation comes with a catch. You gain more data but lose more trust. You get more options but feel more overwhelmed. You chase more solutions but drift further from yourself. Now the question gets sharper. What happens when healing is no longer sacred, but strategic? What happens when your body stops being a temple and becomes a target? Because the industry doesn't care whether you're well. It only cares that you keep coming back. And the longer you believe it's helping you heal, the deeper it takes root. We like to think of medicine as a gift, of modern progress a triumph of science, a force for good. But what if it's become something else entirely? In 1975, long before wellness became a billion-dollar lifestyle, even Illich saw the writing on the wall. In his book Medical Nemesis, he delivered a warning that was both prophetic and piercing. Modern medicine has become a major threat to health, not by accident but by design. Because Illich didn't just question the effectiveness of modern medicine, he questioned its role in society, its power, its authority. He argued that medicine had become something much bigger, a new religion. Think about it. It has rituals, it has sacred language, it has priests in white coats, and most importantly, it has followers who rarely question it. But this isn't faith, it's dependence. And Illich gave that dependence a name: iatrogenesis, a term that means harm caused by the healer. His core claim that modern healthcare doesn't just treat illness, it often creates it. Let's break that down. First, clinical iatrogenesis. This is what happens when treatments themselves make people sicker, not by mistake, but as part of the process. Too many drugs, unnecessary surgeries, aggressive diagnostics that lead to more interventions, more side effects, more risk. According to Johns Hopkins University, in 2020, medical error was the third leading cause of death. In the United States, read that again, the people meant to heal are now the third most common reason people die, but it doesn't stop there. Second, social iatrogenesis, the kind that doesn't attack the body but the mindset. Illich warned that modern medicine slowly teaches people to stop trusting themselves, to hand over their instincts in exchange for data. That instead of knowing how to care for our own bodies, we're trained to outsource that wisdom. We stop listening to how we feel and start fixating on numbers, lab results, wearables, diagnostics, and constantly shifting norms. We no longer ask, what does my body need today? We ask, what does my doctor say? The chart says, people used to pass down health practices through generations. Now, we pass down dependence and medical fear, disguised as responsibility, a belief that if something feels off, it must be a job for an expert, for a scan, for a prescription. Over time, this erodes our natural confidence. We're no longer active participants in our own healing. We become passive recipients of protocols. And third, cultural iatrogenesis, the deepest cut of all, the kind that alters how we see life itself. Illich argued that medicine has replaced our ancient understanding of life and death with cold, technical management, that aging, pain, and even death, once accepted as natural parts of human existence, have now been medicalized. Death is no longer a passage. It's a failure. Pain is no longer a teacher. It's a malfunction. Suffering is no longer part of the human condition. It's a problem to be sedated, managed, tracked, and numbed instead of understood and honored. And the result, we don't just fear illness. We fear being human, fragile, mortal. Emotional changing, we've turned to machines to monitor what our ancestors felt intuitively. We've turned to protocols instead of wisdom passed down through life. And in doing so, we've lost something priceless: the ability to live in peace with our own bodies. Illich saw this clearly. He wasn't anti-science. He wasn't telling us to reject all medicine or abandon progress, but he was urging us to see the system for what it's become: a force that claims to empower you, but slowly conditions you to believe that you're never enough without it. And when that belief takes root, health stops being a birthright and becomes a subscription. So we must ask, when did we stop being people and start being patients for life? Because once you see how deep this goes, You realize the sickness isn't just in the body. It's in the culture, it's in the silence, and most of all, it's in the blind trust. By now it should be clear. The health industry isn't failing to make you well. It's succeeding at keeping you dependent. Because wellness in its modern form isn't about curing the root. It's about managing the symptoms endlessly profitably. Quietly, let's look at the facts. Take statins, for example, one of the most widely prescribed drugs in the world. Used to treat high cholesterol. Millions of people are on them, not just for a month, not for a year, but for life, and yet, study after study has raised questions about their actual benefit, especially in people without a history of heart disease. But the prescriptions keep coming, because statins don't just treat. They turn everyday people into long-term pharmaceutical customers quietly, systematically, and without an end in sight. Why? Because you can't build a trillion-dollar industry on cured patients. You build it on returning ones. And the deeper you look, the darker it gets. According to a ProPublica investigation in 2022, nearly half of Pfizer's profits came from medications that don't cure, drugs that manage, drugs that maintain, drugs that treat but never truly liberate. That's not a side effect, that's the business model. And it's not just pharma, the wellness industry, with all its soft colors and positive vibes, plays the same game. Mindfulness apps, collagen powders, detox kits, mushroom coffee, ashwagandha smoothies, liver cleanses. Each product whispers the same quiet message. You're not enough yet, you're not centered enough, not clean enough, not glowing enough, not optimized enough, but don't worry. There's always another upgrade, another subscription, another solution that promises peace, but delivers attachment. You never arrive. You just keep adjusting, and that's the genius of it all. The traditional medical system sells fear. The wellness world sells hope. But both are selling the same thing: dependence. And while the packaging may look different, lab coats versus yoga mats, the result is eerily similar. You keep searching, you keep spending, you keep believing the next fix will finally set you free. But freedom was never the goal. Retention was, because a patient who needs you is valuable. A patient who no longer does isn't. Illich saw this decades ago, and he didn't hold back. He wrote, "Modern medicine does not empower people. It makes them docile, anxious, and obedient. Docile because you stop questioning. Anxious because you're trained to fear your own body. Obedient because you believe someone else always knows better. And this obedience, it doesn't come through force. It comes through conditioning. You're taught to see your body not as wise, but as dangerous, not as resilient, but as fragile, and so you comply. Not out of ignorance, but out of insecurity. You follow instructions, you book the tests. You refill the pills, you track every step, every calorie, every heartbeat. You live on edge, convinced that safety comes from surveillance. But this isn't health, this is learned dependence. And the longer you stay in it, the more foreign freedom starts to feel. Here's the truth: no one profits from telling you your body is not broken by default. It's not a ticking time bomb waiting to betray you. It's not something you need to fight. It's something you need to remember. Because the most dangerous thing this system has done isn't selling you overpriced pills or wellness fads. It's convincing you that you can't live without them. But what if you can? What if the first step to real health isn't adding more to your routine, but taking back what was quietly taken from you? Trust, confidence, sovereignty. Because the system doesn't fear sickness. It depends on it. What it fears is a person who no longer needs it. At this point, the question isn't whether the system wants you dependent. The question is, what did it have to take from you to make that possible? Even Illich didn't just point to profit. He pointed to something much deeper, something far more dangerous than medication overuse or marketing spin. He revealed what the system had quietly stolen from you: your right to care for yourself. He wrote the modern patient is no longer a person, but a customer of a health consumption industry, not a human being with instincts, but a passive client plugged into a system that feeds off confusion and compliance. And to create that kind of customer, they had to take 3 fundamental rights. First, your right to understand your own body. That might sound strange, but think about it. Medical language has become a kind of code, a private dialect only spoken by professionals. Latin terms, endless acronyms. Lab values stripped of meaning. Numbers you're told to fear but not to understand. You feel something but you're told it's subjective. Your body sends a signal and you're trained to doubt it until a test confirms it. You're not sick unless the numbers say you are. You're not healthy unless a chart tells you so. Over time, you learn to ignore your intuition, to distrust your senses, to ask for permission to feel. The body becomes a mystery, and you become a stranger to yourself. Second, your right to take care of yourself. In the past, families passed down knowledge of herbs, breathwork, healing rituals. Communities knew how to tend to wounds, rest during illness, listen to pain. Today, you're told not to act unless a licensed expert approves it. You're discouraged from trying anything unofficial. Even the word self-treatment carries a warning label. You've been conditioned to believe that health must be prescribed, that you need a referral, a subscription, a copay just to exist in your own skin. What was once common sense has become controversial, and slowly the ability to care becomes the fear of doing something wrong. Third, your right to accept the natural course of life. Pain, aging, death, once seen as inevitable parts of being human, are now treated as medical failures. You're told to fight every wrinkle, avoid every discomfort, panic at every symptom. To age is to lose, to feel pain is to malfunction. To die is to be defeated, but the truth. Some things are not meant to be fixed. They are meant to be felt, faced, honored. Yet the industry doesn't profit from peace. It profits from fear, so everything becomes a problem. Everything needs intervention. Everything needs a price tag. And here's the bitter irony. The primitive man felt pain, but he was free. He trusted his body. He lived close to the earth. He honored the cycle. The modern man is medicated but enslaved, disconnected, anxious, trapped in a maze of metrics, appointments, and prescriptions. One suffers but walks in sovereignty. The other is sedated and terrified. That's the world Illich saw unfolding. And it's the world we now live in, where the body is no longer home. It's a liability, a ticking clock, a malfunction waiting to happen. And so we run from symptom to symptom, from scan to scan, from one expert to the next, searching for something we already had. But here's the truth they won't tell you. You were not born broken, you were born capable. Capable of rest, of healing, of sensing when something isn't right. But a system built on profit doesn't empower that. It buries it. It replaces your inner knowing with external authority, your calm with anxiety, your sovereignty with submission. And the longer we live in that world, the more we forget what health really is. Not perfection, not control, but trust, and that trust must be reclaimed before it's erased completely. Illich never told us to reject medicine. He wasn't anti-science. He wasn't telling you to throw away your prescriptions, cancel your doctor, or go live in the woods. He simply said this: Understand what the system really is, and don't confuse it with freedom. Don't confuse it with life. Because real health isn't just about avoiding disease. It's about reclaiming the right to live on your own terms, and that starts not with rebellion, but with remembrance. So, how do you begin? How do you restore the right to care for yourself without becoming reckless? Illich offered a simple, radical path, one that doesn't require a revolution, only awareness. Step 1. Ask the question every time a pill is prescribed, every time a scan is suggested, every time you're told to take something, change something, worry about something. Pause and ask, do I truly need this? Or am I being nudged by fear I didn't consent to? Not all medicine is manipulation, but not all of it is care. And if you never question it, you've already lost your freedom. Step 2, return to what you already know. Your body is not a stranger. It's not a machine that needs constant tuning, nor a broken system waiting for outside authority. It's intelligent, responsive, resilient, but only when you stop trying to optimize it to death. With endless upgrades and interventions. Sleep, breathe, move, eat whole food, stand in the sun, rest when you're tired, laugh without guilt, and pause without shame. These things don't require apps, or subscriptions, or specialists. They require something far rarer. Your full presence, and presence in this world has become an act of rebellion. Step 3, accept what the system wants you to deny, that this life is finite, that pain is part of being human, that death is not a failure. It's a fact of existence. When we stop pretending we can outsmart mortality, we stop panicking at every wrinkle, every ache, every breath that feels off. We begin to see life not as a condition to manage, but as an experience to feel with honesty, humility, and courage. And when you make peace with death, you finally make peace with life. Because here's the real awakening. True health was never about avoiding discomfort. It was never about controlling every variable. It was never about living forever. It was about living well with awareness, with dignity, and most importantly, with choice that comes from within. And no system can give that to you. You have to take it back quietly, boldly, without asking for permission. Don't fight the system, leave it behind. Even Illich said it best. A healthy society is not one with more medicine, but one where fewer people need it. Let that sink in. The goal is not to be endlessly treated. The goal is to be whole, to feel whole, to live whole. So if you truly want to be well, don't start with a prescription. Don't start with a pill. Don't start with a fear. Start with a question. Start with a breath. Start with the courage to trust yourself again. In a world that teaches the opposite, not blindly, not foolishly, but with the wisdom that your body was never the enemy, it was your oldest, most loyal guide. The enemy was forgetting how to listen to it. You don't need to burn the system to the ground. You just need to stop surrendering your power to it. Let it run its course, let it sell what it wants to sell, but you can quietly, steadily, deliberately exit. You can stop being a customer and start being a human again. Because the moment you stop chasing health like a product and start living health like a principle, you are no longer under their control. You're not just surviving. You're not just optimizing. You're finally free.